From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. Radio Pilipinas World Service can also be heard on shortwave broadcast through the shortwave facilities of the United States Agency for Global Media or Voice of America on the following shortwave frequencies: 15.640 MHz, 17.750 MHz, and 21.720 MHz. I'm your host, Leo Magpayo, and this is Dateline Malacañang. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Friday led the nation in marking the 128th anniversary of Philippine independence and nationhood at the Rizal National Monument in Manila. The President, joined by the First Family, spearheaded the traditional flag-raising and wreath-laying rites honoring Dr. Jose Rizal and the country's heroes whose sacrifices secured the nation's freedom. In his message at the Quirino Grandstand, the President urged Filipinos to draw strength from the nation's heroes and work together for the common good. President Marcos honored the men and women who fought for the country's freedom, as well as generations of Filipinos who dedicated their lives to nation building. The President said the June 12, 1898 declaration in Kawit, Cavite signaled a defining moment in Philippine history, the point when Filipinos formally asserted their right to self-governance and chart their own future. He noted that the years that followed tested the nation's resolve as it built institutions, strengthened unity, and upheld an independent republic. President Marcos expressed hope that this year's commemoration deepens public understanding of the country's past and inspires a renewed sense of duty as the nation continues building a bagong Pilipinas or New Philippines worthy of sacrifices that secured our sovereignty and of the dreams and aspirations that gave birth to the Republic. The chief executive also called on Filipinos to guard truth against distortion, use technology responsibly, and rebuild trust at a time of growing division. He said the country's response to these challenges will shape the nation's future and determine what is passed on to the next generation.
Sa bawat Pilipino, ito ang aking panawagan. Huwag po tayong mapagod na mahalin, piliin at ipaglaban ang Pilipinas. Ipalalim natin ang ating kamalayan, maging mapanuri sa katotohanan. Gamitin natin sa tama ang ating kakayahan, hindi sa masama. Lumaban ng patas sa araw-araw, huwag pagsamantalahan ang pinagpaguran ng iba. At piliin natin ang ikabubuti ng bayan laban sa interes ng iilan. Kung mananatili tayong tapat sa mga adhikaing ito, matitiyak tayong magmamana ang mga susunod ng henerasyon ng isang bansa na mas matatag, mas makatarungan at mas maunlad. Tandaan natin na ang kapayapaan, kasarinlan at kalayaan na ating tinatamasa sa ngayon ay tinubos ng dugo ng mga nauna sa atin. Naway magsilbing bigkis ang ating bandila, ang ating pambansang awit at ang ating pagka-Pilipino sa pagbuo ng isang bagong Pilipinas.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Thursday led the distribution of learning resources to students from 13 public schools in San Juan City during a ceremony at the Pinaglabanan Elementary School. The president handed out school bags and educational materials, observed demonstrations of smart classroom technology, and met with 105 scholars under the Presidential Merit Scholarship Program. He underscored the administration's push to strengthen the education system by supporting both learners and teachers. The San Juan city government also distributed around 13,000 tablets to learners from kindergarten to grade 12 across its 13 public schools to expand access to digital learning. Meanwhile, the Office of the President, Office of the Executive Secretary provided about 1,000 school bags for kindergarten and grade 1 pupils through the Socio-Civic Projects Fund or SCPF. Each bag contains essential supplies such as workbooks, notebooks, crayons, and pencil cases. Thursday's event follows earlier nationwide rollouts in Rizal, Cebu, and Davao Oriental, where reading materials and other learning tools were delivered to classrooms to help build strong literacy foundations. The president's visit also highlighted the government's commitment to removing barriers to learning, maximizing digital technologies, and supporting Filipino children beyond basic education. The activity aligns with the Department of Education or DepEd's newly launched nationwide literacy initiative, which targets 6.8 million learners from kindergarten to grade 3, an age group transitioning from learning to read to reading to learn. Under the program, students receive age-appropriate storybooks designed to strengthen foundational literacy and early cognitive development. Learners also receive materials from education and publishing partners including the Asia Foundation, Adarna House, Canvas, Lampara Publishing House, and Rex Bookstore. DepEd funded the printing and reproduction of the storybooks, while partners donated literacy materials promoting reading comprehension, numeracy, values formation, environmental awareness, and life skills. President Marcos again urged students, especially scholars, to study diligently, saying they will one day become the country's future leaders.
Kaya't mapakanibangan nyo sana ang tulong na binibigay namin para kayo ay maging handa pagdating ng panahon. At alam naman natin, kapag kayo ay may magandang pinag-aralan, malaking tulong ito sa inyong pamumuhay, sa mga sarili ninyo, sa pamilya ninyo, sa komunidad ninyo, at sa ganung paraan sa buong Pilipinas. Kaya't huwag niyong kakalimutan gaano kahalaga ang edukasyon. Huwag niyong kakalimutan, kaya't mag-aral kayo na mabuti, pagsagaan ninyo talaga. Dahil ito ay kayamanan na maibibigay namin sa inyo, na hindi na makukuha sa inyo, hindi na malulusaw yan, hindi na maaagaw yan. Wala nang pwedeng magnakaw sa inyo yan. Habang buhay ninyo, araw-araw ninyo magpapasalamat na nagkaroon kayo ng magandang edukasyon. So, work hard, study hard, and magkita tayo pag may hawak na kayong diploma.
Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. and First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos led the reception and blessing of the pilgrim image of Our Lady of Guadalupe at Malacañang Palace on Thursday, formally opening the Philippine Pilgrimage 2026. The ceremony underscored the country's deep Marian devotion and the Philippines' participation in the global Novena Intercontinental Guadalupana, a multi-year spiritual preparation leading to the 500th anniversary of the apparitions of Our Lady of Guadalupe in 2031. The pilgrim image, a replica of the original tilma enshrined in Mexico's Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe, was received in rites presided over by the President and the First Lady, highlighting its significance to millions of Filipino Catholics. The image will travel nationwide for 6 months with scheduled visits to more than 40 cathedrals and major shrines across Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. One of its key stops includes the 132nd Plenary Assembly of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, or CBCP, in Ozami City. The CBCP, working with the Guadalupe Pilgrimage Committee, is overseeing the national itinerary. The pilgrimage will culminate with the permanent installation of the image at the Manila Cathedral. Organizers say the nationwide journey aims to deepen faith and strengthen devotion among Filipino Catholics as part of a broader international spiritual preparation toward 2031.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. is set to meet German Federal President Frank-Walter Steinmeier next week for high-level talks on defense cooperation, trade and investment, renewable energy, and other key areas of partnership between Manila and Berlin. The Presidential Communications Office, or PCO, announced that Steinmeier will undertake a state visit to the Philippines from June 15 to 17, the first by a German head of state in more than 6 decades. President Marcos will formally welcome him at Malacañang Palace. According to the PCO, the two leaders will discuss shared priorities, including defense and peace building, maritime cooperation, climate action, renewable energy development, and expanding people-to-people exchanges. They are also expected to exchange views on regional and global developments, including the Philippines' ongoing chairship of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN. Steinmeier's visit marks a significant moment in the more than 70 years of diplomatic relations between the Philippines and Germany. The last German head of state to visit Manila was President Heinrich Lübke in 1963. President Marcos previously traveled to Berlin in March 2024 for a working visit, where he met then-Chancellor Olaf Scholz as both nations commemorated the 70th anniversary of diplomatic ties established in 1954. Germany remains the Philippines' largest trading and investment partner within the European Union. Major German companies including Siemens, Lufthansa Technik, Deutsche Bank, Bayer, and Bosch continue to operate in the country. Germany has also served as a development partner of ASEAN since 2016 and has consistently supported the rule of law and a rules-based international order in the Indo-Pacific.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. will lead the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN's review of its cooperation with Russia when he attends the ASEAN-Russia Commemorative Summit in Kazan from June 17 to 18. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro confirmed the president's trip, noting that his participation forms part of the Philippines' responsibilities as this year's ASEAN chair. Castro said the gathering marks the 35th anniversary of ASEAN-Russia relations. As chair, the Philippines will steer discussions on the current state of cooperation with Moscow and identify areas for deeper engagement. The summit is also expected to outline future initiatives aimed at strengthening ties between Southeast Asia and Russia across security, economic, and socio-cultural pillars. When asked about a possible bilateral meeting between President Marcos and Russian President Vladimir Putin, Castro said details of the president's engagements will be clarified by the Department of Foreign Affairs or DFA in a briefing on June 15th. On potential energy-related discussions, Castro said Energy Secretary Sharon Garin is interested in exploring options on energy transition and fuel diversification, though no specific agreements or proposals have been finalized. Garin is expected to raise the matter with the Russian ambassador. The Kazan summit will bring together ASEAN leaders and Russian officials as both sides assess ongoing cooperation and chart the direction of their partnership in the years ahead.
Unang-una po ay hiningi po natin ang konting komento ng opisina po ng DFA. Pero ang mga detalye po nito ay maibibigay nila sa Lunes para sa kanilang press briefing. Ayon po sa DFA, magtutungo ang Pangulo sa Kazan, sa Russia mula Hunyo 17 hanggang 18 upang dumalo sa ASEAN-Russia Commemorative Summit. Ito ay isang pagtitipo na ginaganap bilang paggunita sa ika-35 na anibersaryo ng ugnayan ng ASEAN at Russia. Ang Russia ay isang ASEAN Dialogue Partner at bilang ASEAN Chair, ang Pilipinas, pangungunahan natin ang pagsusuri sa naging takbo ng ating kooperasyon at relasyon sa Russia. Kasama rin dito ang pagtatalakay sa mga susunod na hakbang upang higit pang mapalalim at mapalawak ang ugnayan ng Pilipinas at Russia at ng ASEAN. So yan po sa ngayon ang mensahe ng DFA, pero ang detalye po ay makukuha natin sa kanilang press briefing sa Monday po. Binanggit po natin kanina na tayo po kasi ang ASEAN Chair at kailangan po natin pangunahan po ito. Total po ito ay related po sa ito'y tinatawag na ASEAN-Russia Commemorative Summit. So kinakailangan po talaga ng Pangulo na magtungo sa nasabing summit.
Was Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang is downplaying reports of an alleged destabilization plot against President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., saying the Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, remains solid, professional, and firmly committed to its constitutional duties. In a Palace briefing, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said AFP leaders have not received any verified information pointing to unrest within the ranks. She acknowledged that rumors have been circulating but emphasized that the military is monitoring the situation closely. Castro stressed that the AFP has assured the government that its personnel remain active, united, and professional, adding there is no need for a loyalty check.
Ang sabi po mismo ng pamunuan ng AFP ay wala silang nakukuhang anumang detalye o impormasyon patungkol dito, pero syempre may ugong-ugong at ito naman din ay kanilang binabantayan. But as of now, ang miyembro po ng AFP ay nanatiling active, united at professional. At hindi po kinakailangan, according to AFP, ng loyalty check. Dahil alam po nila ang kanilang mandato para sa bayan at naaayon sa konstitusyon.
The Palace statement follows remarks from Senator Panfilo Lacson, who claimed some military personnel were expressing dissatisfaction that could potentially fuel destabilization efforts. In a separate statement, the Philippine Army reaffirmed its non-partisan stance, saying it remains focused on its mission and the welfare of its troops. Army Chief Lieutenant General Antonio Navarrete said they are a non-partisan organization and will not intervene in any political activity, adding that their commitment to democratic principles and the rule of law is unwavering. The Army also assured the public that mechanisms are in place to address soldiers' concerns, emphasizing that the organization remains united and dedicated to serving the Filipino people.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang says President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. is fully aware of reports about a new Chinese structure inside the lagoon of Bajo de Masinloc and remains firm in pursuing diplomatic and legal actions to defend the country's rights in the West Philippine Sea. In a palace briefing, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the president continues to uphold a rules-based approach in addressing developments in disputed waters. She noted that the Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, has already filed a diplomatic protest over the floating, movable platform reportedly installed by China inside the shoal. Asked about concerns that the Philippines may be losing control over the area, Castro said the president remains resolute in defending national interests.
Ang masasabi po na lamang natin ay alam po ng Pangulo ang nangyayari at nanatili pong malinaw ang kanyang paninindigan na unahin ang paggamit ng diplomatiko at legal na hakbang sa pagharap ng itong klaseng sitwasyon. So ang DFA ay formal na pong naghain ng diplomatic protest laban sa floating movable platform ng China dito sa Bajo de Masinloc. So tuloy pa rin po ang ating paninindigan kung ano ang ating karapatan at ano ang dapat nating ipaglaban. Hindi po hahayaan ng Pangulo na mangyari po yan. Alam po natin ano ang totoong stance ng Pangulo pagdating sa interes ng mga Pilipino at interes din natin dito sa ating West Philippine Sea.
The statement follows confirmation from the National Task Force West Philippine Sea of a square floating structure inside the lagoon of Bajo de Masinloc, along with other unidentified objects such as buoys and antennas based on aerial and maritime surveillance. The DFA earlier described the structure as a violation of Philippine sovereignty, sovereign rights, and jurisdiction and demanded its removal. Tensions in the West Philippine Sea continue to rise as Manila repeatedly protests China's activities, citing violations of Philippine sovereignty and the 2016 arbitral ruling that invalidated Beijing's expansive maritime claims.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang is pushing back against Vice President Sara Duterte's claim that the recent turmoil in the Senate reflects weak leadership under President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. In a palace briefing, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the president had no involvement in any of the developments in the Senate, including the May 13 gunfire incident and the dispute over Senate leadership. She rejected assertions that the Senate conflict signals a failure of leadership, saying the president remains focused on helping Filipinos amid global challenges and the recent earthquake in Mindanao. Castro also pointed out that several senators involved in efforts to influence Senate leadership changes and the impeachment proceedings against Duterte are known allies of the vice president. She added that the issue is not about weak leadership in the administration, but about continued abuse of power for the benefit of their allies, urging the public not to be swayed by attempts to appear like a victim. Asked whether the palace is concerned that the Senate gridlock could affect the impeachment process, Castro said The president's priority is ensuring due process and adherence to the rule of law. Castro emphasized that the public deserves clarity and truth through established legal procedures.
Okay, ang paulit-ulit na kasinungalingan ay naglalagay sa atin sa isang kumunoy. Habang ang Pangulo ay patuloy na nagtatrabaho para ayusin, mabigyan ng mga tulong para mapaganda ang buhay ng bawat Pilipino, lalong-lalo na't may kinakaharap tayong global oil crisis, pati na po ang nangyaring lindol sa Mindanao. Patuloy na nagtatrabaho, samantalang ang Vice Presidente ay patuloy sa paninira at binabago ang naratibo. Ang dapat natin tandaan, ito naman ay nasa records. Ang putukan na nangyari sa Senado, hindi po ito pinag-utos ng Pangulo. Ito ay may pagsang-ayon si Senator Alan Cayetano. Inamin din naman ni Senator Bato de la Rosa kung bakit pinilit na siya'y pumunta at bumoto. Una, to change the leadership. Pangalawa, for the impeachment. So ang mga tao sa likod na to, ang lahat ng ito, lahat sila yung nagsasabing dapat na ibasura ang impeachment. Ito ay lahat para sa proteksyon ng Vice Presidente. Ang pagpapatakas kay Senator Bato de la Rosa sa tulong ni Senator Robin Padilla, hindi ito nanggagaling sa Pangulo. Ang dalawang sinabi nating senador ay kaalyado ng Vice Presidente. So hindi totoo na patungkol daw sa kahinaan ng liderato sa administrasyon. Kung hindi ito ay sa patuloy na pang-aabuso sa kapangyarihan para lamang sa kanilang mga kaalyado. So, huwag sana mamihasa sa pagdudungis ng iba para magmukhang biktima sa ating mga mata.
Was Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang is calling for a swift and thorough investigation into the deaths of two Ateneo student athletes amid reports and speculation circulating online about the circumstances of the incident. In a Palace briefing, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said, President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. wants authorities to immediately establish the facts surrounding the tragedy. Ateneo earlier confirmed the deaths of 19-year-old Rene Clerc Baterbonia and 21-year-old Nigerian student athlete Divine Adili, who drowned during a team-building activity in Dipakulaw, Aurora on Monday afternoon. When asked about social media claims suggesting the incident may have involved hazing, Castro stressed that investigators must be allowed to determine the truth.
Una po, of course, nakikiramay po tayo sa pangyayaring ito. At ang nais din po ng Pangulo, hindi lamang po tayo sa sitwasyon na ganito, pero sa lahat po ng mga Pilipino na pupunta sa ganitong klaseng sitwasyon, dapat pong agaran ang pag-iimbestiga. So, kailangan po talaga ng agaran pag-iimbestiga dito dahil hindi po naging maganda ang naging resulta ng sinasabing training. Of course, hindi po natin kailangan i-preempt or mag-prejudge dito. So, kailangan po talaga ng agarang investigasyon.
Philippine Sports Commission, or PSC, has formed a multi-stakeholder panel to help establish a full account of what happened and to review existing athlete safety protocols. The National Bureau of Investigation, or NBI, and the Philippine National Police, or PNP, are also conducting parallel probes. In a statement, the NBI said it has deployed a dedicated task force to examine all angles, including whether negligence may have played a role. The Bureau noted that a finding of no foul play only rules out intentional harm, but does not address possible liability under Article 365 of the Revised Penal Code, which covers deaths resulting from reckless or simple imprudence. The NBI emphasized that organizers of school-sanctioned activities are legally required to exercise the diligence of a good father of a family, citing provisions of the Civil Code. The Bureau urged the public to avoid speculation that could prejudice either the families or individuals who may be subject to inquiry. According to initial police findings, the two athletes were swimming when they were swept away by a strong current. Responding officers from the Dipakulaw Municipal Police Station rushed them to a nearby medical facility where they were later declared dead.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang says the Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, has enough funds to carry out the special election in Cavite's 4th District this August. In a palace briefing, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro announced that the Department of Budget and Management, or DBM, has informed the palace that COMELEC may tap its existing budget to finance the electoral exercise. COMELEC Chair George Erwin Garcia earlier estimated the cost of the special polls at around 200 million pesos.
Nausap po natin ang DBM. According to DBM, meron pa pong pondo na nasa COMELEC at maaari naman po nilang gamitin po yun. Sapat po ang pondo.
The clarification comes after COMELEC sought funding assistance for the special election, which will fill the House seat vacated following the expulsion of former Representative Francisco Barzaga Jr. for disorderly behavior and violations of the House Code of Conduct. The special election is set for August 29, 2026. COMELEC has scheduled the filing of certificates of candidacy from July 15 to 17, while the election period will begin on July 30th. Garcia said the poll body aims to proclaim the winning candidate by the morning of August 30th, noting that no issues have emerged that could hinder the conduct of the polls. He also expressed hope that August 29 would be declared a holiday in the district to boost voter turnout. Cavite's 4th District has 437,730 registered voters spread across 43 voting centers and 3,166 clustered precincts.
Dateline Malacañang.
Still on Thursday, Malacañang says the Department of Agriculture, or DA, will recommend extending the 50 peso per kilo maximum suggested retail price, or SRP, for rice, which is set to lapse on June 30th. In a palace briefing, Presidential Communications Office Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the DA is currently reviewing the proposal as part of efforts to keep rice prices affordable. She added that while no decision has been made, the DA aims to secure an extension before the June 30 deadline. Castro also confirmed that several rice retailers are under investigation for allegedly violating the price cap. The DA has begun issuing notices to establishments suspected of overpricing while probes continue. Castro urged the public to report retailers who may be abusing rice prices so authorities can investigate and hold violators accountable. The DA has yet to release the exact number of retailers under investigation, but Castro said multiple establishments have already received notices for possible non-compliance.
Ang sabi po mismo ng DA, ng Department of Agriculture, ay magre-recommenda pa rin po sila ng extension of the price cap. At ito naman po ay titignan po natin at kung sasang-ayunan pa rin po ng National Price Coordinating Council at kung aaproba ng Pangulo. Pero magre-recommenda po sila na extension for the price cap.
Abot po kaya yun, ma'am, before mag-June 13?
Yun po ang inaaral ng DA at yan po ang nais nila. Ang sabi po ng DA ay nagbibigay na po sila ng notice patungkol sa mga violation na ito. So, sa ngayon po ay iniimbestigahan po to. Kaya po hinikayat natin ang mga kababayan po natin sa mga nakikita nyo po na umaabuso patungkol sa presyo ng bigas, ipagbigay lamang po ninyo sa kahit po sa amin dito at sa Department of Agriculture para po ito ay maimbestigahan at mapanagot na ang dapat na mapanagot. Hindi pa po ako nabigyan ng anumang detalye sa numero pero sa ngayon po ay sinabi nila meron na silang nabigyan ng mga notice.
Was Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, Philippine Defense Secretary Gilberto Chodoro Jr. is brushing off China's decision to impose sanctions on him and his family, saying such actions are typical of Beijing's response to those who call out its deception in the region. In a statement Friday, Chodoro said China's move was neither surprising nor intimidating. China earlier announced that Teodoro and his immediate family are now barred from entering mainland China, Hong Kong, and Macau. The sanctions also prohibit Chinese companies from doing business with them. Beijing's foreign ministry accused Teodoro of repeatedly making irresponsible remarks on China, claiming his statements undermined Chinese interests and damaged China-Philippines relations. Teodoro has been one of the Philippine government's most vocal critics of China's aggressive and coercive actions in the West Philippine Sea. He has consistently raised these concerns in both local and international forums, calling out what he describes as illegal and destabilizing activities within Philippine waters. The sanctions come amid heightened tensions in the West Philippine Sea, where Manila continues to protest China's incursions and its disregard of the 2016 arbitral ruling that invalidated Beijing's sweeping maritime claims.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, Radyo Pilipinas World Service of the Presidential Broadcast Service can be heard over the following shortwave frequencies: 15.640 MHz, 17.750 MHz, and 21.720 MHz. Radyo Pilipinas World Service is also live on audio streaming. Just download Evox PBS Receiver on your Google Play Store or the App Store from your Apple phone. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Just type in and search for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our posts as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.